Aerosmith has permanently retired from touring after more than 5 decades, blaming the move on Steven Tyler's vocal injury.
Steven Tyler spent 60 years turning his voice into the loudest thing in any room. That voice earned him 4 Grammys, more than 150 million records sold, and a scream so famous it earned him a nickname all its own, the Demon of Screaming. Then one night in September 2023, on a stage in Long Island, his voice simply broke mid-performance in front of a crowd that had no idea they were watching the beginning of the end. Now, at 78, Steven Tyler can no longer do the one thing that defined his entire life. So what actually happened to the man behind that voice? Let's find out. The Boy from Yonkers. Stephen Victor Tallarico, better known as Steven Tyler, was born on March 26, 1948, at the Stuyvesant Polyclinic in Manhattan. His mother, Susan, worked as a secretary. His father, Victor, was a classically trained pianist who'd studied at Juilliard and taught music for years at a high school in the Bronx. Music was the way of life of the household. His father lived by it, and Stephen was exposed to that world from the moment he could listen. By the age of 4, Victor had already started teaching him piano. He wanted his son to follow in his footsteps and learn classical music. But Stephen had other plans. He wanted the noise and the chaos. For a while, Stephen walked between both of those worlds, unsure of what he should do. But the moment he saw the Rolling Stones perform live in Greenwich, everything clicked into place. Stephen knew then and there that he wanted to be the one on center stage, screaming his lungs out. At 16, he'd already formed his first band, The Strangers, with Johnny Adamek, Ken, and Joe. Stephen originally played drums for the band, but he eventually became the lead vocalist. They changed their name to Chain Reaction before eventually breaking up in 1969. In 1970, Stephen moved to Massachusetts to follow his dream of becoming a rock star. It was at that time in Boston when he met guitarist Joe Perry, and the two of them, along with Tom Hamilton, Joey Kramer, and Brad Whitford, formed a band called Aerosmith. They lived together, rehearsed in a college basement, and did every gig they got to make enough money to get by. For years, they had been fighting just to get noticed. Then in 1975, everything changed. Fame finally arrived, and with it came the money, the drugs, and a new set of problems Tyler wasn't prepared for. The rise and fall. Aerosmith's first big breakthrough came with 1975's album Toys in the Attic, which sold over 10 million copies and turned Steven Tyler into rock's most electric frontman. He screamed, he spun, he wrapped scarves around the mic stand until they became part of his image. Rolling Stone, the pop culture magazine, would later rank him among the greatest singers in rock history. But every step up the ladder of fame came with a step deeper into addiction. Tyler and Perry became so consumed by cocaine and heroin that the press nicknamed them the Toxic Twins. Bandmates later described dressing rooms turning into shouting matches, sometimes worse, night after night. By 1979, that pressure had cracked the band wide open, and Perry had had enough. After another one of their fights at a show in Cleveland, he quit the band on the spot. Aerosmith limped on without him, and the band that had once filled stadiums could barely fill a club. The 1982 album Rockin' a Hard Place flopped, and Tyler's addiction worsened rapidly. By the singer's own account, he was often too intoxicated to even remember the lyrics to his own songs while on stage. By the mid-1980s, most of the music industry had already written Aerosmith off. Nobody could have guessed the biggest chapter of the story hadn't happened yet. The comeback Joe Perry rejoined the band in 1984, and Tyler entered rehab for the first time that same year. Then he joined for a second time in 1986. But neither attempt really helped because he didn't yet understand what he was actually fighting. The real turning point wasn't a rehab stay, it was a song. In 1986, producer Rick Rubin brought Run DMC and Aerosmith together to re-record Walk This Way. The video, and the collaboration behind it, became one of the first real bridges between rock and hip-hop on mainstream television. It introduced Tyler to a whole new generation that had never heard his name before. 2 years later, in 1988, Tyler's bandmates and management staged a full intervention and forced him into rehab a third time. He was furious about it. But this time, sobriety actually held. And what followed was one of the most complete comebacks in music history. Permanent Vacation in 1987, Pump in 1989, and then Get a Grip in 1993, which alone sold over 20 million copies worldwide. Janie's Got a Gun, a song Tyler wrote about a girl who survives abuse at the hands of her own father, won Aerosmith their first Grammy in 1990. In 2001, the band was formally inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Recently, Tyler admitted that he used to believe his creative power was because of the drugs. His comeback and the triumphs after becoming sober had proven something to himself and the entire world. His success wasn't because of the drugs, it was his own talent and hard work. But sobriety didn't erase everything the previous decade had done. And some of the most serious damage wasn't on stage at all. It was much more personal. The cost of addiction. For the first 11 years of his oldest daughter Liv's life, Steven Tyler wasn't in the picture at all. Her mother, B.B. Buell, kept his identity a secret. Tyler was so deep into addiction at the time that no one felt comfortable placing a newborn in his care. Liv grew up believing musician Todd Rundgren, who signed her birth certificate and raised her, was her biological father. The truth came out at an Aerosmith concert when Liv was around 9 years old. She spotted a girl backstage who looked eerily like her. That girl was Mia, Tyler's daughter from his first marriage. Liv connected the dots and asked her mother directly if Steven was her father. Her mother, in tears, told her the truth right there. In the years that followed, Tyler was able to mend the relationship with his daughter because a core part of his sobriety work involved reaching out to make amends. That's what brought him back into Liv's life. Their relationship grew slowly over the following decade, and it reached a peak in 1998 when Tyler recorded I Don't Want to Miss a Thing for the film Armageddon. Millions heard it as a love song, but for Tyler, it carried the weight of 11 years he could never get back. Today, Tyler has 4 children in total, with 3 different mothers and 2 marriages that ultimately ended in divorce. He's spoken candidly about how much of that fallout traces directly back to addiction and how sobriety became something he had to keep choosing one day at a time for the rest of his life. But the fight was far from finished. Even sober, Tyler's body and his history kept sending him bills that came due decades later. The final bow. In 2006, Tyler revealed he'd been fighting hepatitis C, likely linked to his needle use in the 1970s. 11 months of treatment nearly killed him, he later said, but ultimately cleared the infection. Then came another battle. Years of high-energy performances had left him with chronic foot injuries. After surgeries in the 2000s, prescription painkillers triggered another relapse, sending Tyler back to rehab multiple times, most recently in 2022. And finally, on September 10, 2023, it all came to a sudden end. During a farewell tour stop on Long Island, Tyler's voice gave out mid-show, not from strain, but from an actual fracture in his larynx. Doctors ordered him not to sing for 30 days. That order turned out to be permanent. In August 2024, Aerosmith announced that a full recovery wasn't possible, and the band was retiring from touring for good. But the end of his career wasn't the only difficult chapter in Tyler's later life. 2 women, Julia Misley and Jean Bellino, filed lawsuits accusing Tyler of sexual assault when they were teenagers in the 1970s. Tyler denied the allegations. Bellino's case was dismissed, while most of Misley's case was dismissed on statute of limitations grounds, with one claim still headed toward trial. Still, Tyler hasn't completely left the stage. He performed at a Grammy viewing party in 2025, appeared at the MTV VMAs that September to honor the late Ozzy Osbourne. The voice was smaller now, but he was still there. At 78, Steven Tyler carries all of it at once. The talent, the addiction, the family he nearly lost and partly won back. And now, a body that has quietly closed the door on the one thing he built his entire identity around. Steven Tyler's scream is gone, and what's left is just a man standing in the quiet, still refusing to walk away completely. So after hearing it all, what do you think Steven Tyler's greatest legacy will be? The music he gave the world, or the personal battles he survived along the way? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next mystery we dig into. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.